All right, this is the regular monthly meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, February 16th, 2022. I'm calling the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. First order of business is approval of two sets of minutes. The first are from last month's regular meeting of January 19th. Does anybody have any comments or suggested changes? Scanning. No? Kathy, come on. Come on. I can always count on you.
I have one, which was the discussion on and the vote on the park fee schedule. I think what we said at the end was that we wanted to know if we should establish a process about determining whether we can change the rules to allow for new people to allow for people outside of the town to get a permit. I think it was also a process issue. It wasn't just looking at the permits. We wanted to consider how we should go about it.
Well, I mean, right? we can update our rules. I mean, we can do that. There's no question on that. Okay. You know, my comment was, wanting more information, not just about how many people had purchased in the past, but really what that potential population is, really understanding how many people we're opening it up to, especially given that we have so many apartments and such coming online, and we're expecting increased demand on the parking as well. So it was more understanding the whole picture was my interest. So.
Okay, so maybe that goes to sort of my question. I thought it was more than just how many permits. So if we could change the last sentence, Jamie, to say the commission wanted to get a better understanding of how many permits were already sold and what the potential population could be for town employees who would like to ask for permits or from outside of the town. It was a very wordy sentence. I've had a very long day. Sorry.
Right. And then I think we also wanted information on what, peer towns do.
Yeah. And other towns do. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I had, Lori.
Okay. Anybody else before I have my usual little few things? Oh, nobody else? Okay. On the first page in the audience, I was wondering, we list the members of the RTM Parks and Recreation Committee members, but we also listed Jenny Schwartz, but we didn't notice that she's an RTM member. She's a member of the F&B committee. So it just seems, if we're going to list, if we're going to note that certain people are in the RTM, we should note that Jenny's on the RTM as well, and her committee assignment, I think, would be appropriate.
Okay.
All right, and then also on the parks fee schedule, just the first sentence, I had to read it a couple of times. It just, the wording tripped me up a little bit. So I thought rather than saying Ms. Boer suggested moving forward having the fee schedule, perhaps saying Ms. Boer suggested having the annual fee schedule discussion at an earlier meeting so that it would take place prior to voting on the budget. And then maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 sentences down when it talks about the park monitor position. That was last year. So the way it read, it made it sound like we were doing it this year.
Oh.
So we're saying that some fee increases were due to be an effort to cover new costs, like the beach permit fee being increased to cover the new park monitor position last year.
Okay.
Okay. And then further down where it references the COVID beach closures early in the season, I would add the 2020 season to be specific. And, the discussion of the winter dog program, there's a reference to town council. Kathy, correct me if this is not accurate, but I think in that case, council should be spelled Counsel.
I'm finding the dog program one, so.
Okay.
Well, which council, is it, you're talking about the council of the attorney, the town
Yes.
attorney?
Yes.
Yeah. I would put town attorney, but yes, you spelled council right.
Okay.
I put the town attorney, 'cause I think that's how we correct in another documentation.
Yep. Okay. That's all I had. Okay. All right. Nobody else has anything. We can take a motion to approve the minutes as updated.
I will make a motion.
Thank you, Mary Louise. Second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Kathy. Jamie, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes, Lori,
Yes.
Janet,
Hello?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
We still don't have Amy. And that's everybody.
Okay, let me text Amy really quickly. Okay. Alrighty, and then we have the minutes of the special meeting that we had. Where did they go? Here they are. Which we had last Monday, February 7th. That was the joint meeting with the Coastal Commission.
Lori, I have a question. Would we ever attach to our minutes like their diagram? Where they showed where the dredging would take place or anything like that, or do we not do that?
We could, I think.
It would make more sense if we did, right? So.
Yep. Could you do that, Pam or Jamie?
Absolutely.
Just attach the materials.
As long as Pam has it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Attach the materials that Bill Caver sent out.
Yeah, but I also just reiterate too that it is on video too, so people could catch the whole, all the documents and everything right on channel 79.
Yep. But yeah, the map would help. It would be in Dan Big. Actually, it would be in Dan Big's PowerPoint.
So yeah, I'll get it.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay. Any corrections or comments on this one? Oh, okay. I don't have any because Pam and I worked on them together. So
Pam always gets off.
that's because she sent them to me first.
Trust
all
me,
the
if I didn't send her to Lori, y'all be chipping in. So.
I got all my nitpicks out there in advance. So I think they're good. I was trying to simplify a technical topic. Okay. So if nobody has any questions or comments, can I have a motion? Susan.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Yep. And a second?
I'll do it.
Kathy? I saw Kathy go up. Okay. Jamie, if you can roll call.
All right, Lori,
Yes.
Janet, Sarah,
Yes.
Mary Louise,
Yes.
and that's everybody.
Great. Thank you. Okay. All right. Do we have anyone who would like to speak in public comment tonight? Pam, you didn't make me aware that anybody registered.
No one registered.
No. So I don't know if we have any speakers. It looks like our usual RTM committee pals are on, but I don't see anyone other than RTM committee members. Scanning the names. Okay. All right. Well, then we'll move on. All right, Pam, you can update us on the 2022 concessions at the two beaches and where we are on that.
Sure. So I met with Nikki and her assistant. And as I said in my report, they really want to put all their energies into Weed Beach. And they just don't feel that the facility, they had a very good experience with the facility. So I'm not holding them to that. I decided that I would move along. I do have a meeting with the ableist group, and they currently do a concession, one of the beach concessions at Greenwich. They do a cafe in the library at Greenwich. They do the cafe in Darien. They just opened that up. They are super interested in the possibility. So I'm excited about it. So I'll meet with them next week. And I'll just try to get some details in order, and I'll be able to report back in March for you.
Okay.
I think
And
that's
where are they currently doing concession or a cafe in Darien?
Yes, they just
What-
opened.
Oh, I know. Where is that?
Oh, at the library.
Oh, at the Darien Library. I see.
Yes.
Yeah, there was an article on it. I think just this past week, the cover page of the Darien Times had a nice piece on it.
they're a great organization. I've worked with them in the past. It's great. It's a great idea.
Yeah. And Jamie and I are also going to be meeting with another sector of ableists for internship.
Okay.
So super excited. I think things happen for reasons, and they already have some experience there with working with the towns and different concessions and cafes, and it's definitely a good starting a starter meeting to see what the interest level really is, and the commitment level.
And would that only be for pear tree, or would be for pear tree and weed?
No, just for pear tree.
Okay. So
Mhm.
for weed, you're sticking with
Nikki.
the existing one.
Yes.
What about the baseball field, McGuan?
McQuan ended up finding their own concession just a little bit after the group that backed out on us, and then they found somebody there that's worked out wonderfully.
So did Nikki expound at all on kind of her thinking for weed this year? Pretty much run it as last year, or anything she's thinking about mixing up or doing differently?
Yep, she would like to expand on some hours. She wants to continue doing specials on Friday and Saturday nights. She wants to work with us with the Weed Beach festive nights and try to make that even a better experience. We had a couple little hiccups with the food there. But looking to, we want to do something at Pear Tree as well, and she wants to make sure she's helping out with that as well. So pretty much the same, but she wants to add in a few different things now that she's got her, feet wet there.
Okay. So pear tree more perhaps like just a special pre-order a meal type of thing.
With ableists, you mean?
No, you said Nikki might want to do a few things at pear tree.
Oh, that was if on special events. So
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
right. So we want to do, instead of all festive nights at Weed Beach, we want to at least take one and bring it over to Pear Tree, because we kind of envision putting some lights and maybe a tent and some tables and having some music out on the beach there and serving food. We don't know the details, but we like the concept a lot.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I can give you all a better heads up in March, how things work out and whether I have to go on to Plan C.
Okay. Any questions on that for Pam? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Keep us posted.
Will do.
All right. Next is an update on the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail project.
Yes. So Susan Daly, myself, Jen Montanaro, and Dan Biggs met. Well, let me back up. Jen Montanaro, myself, and Monica McNally met. first and had a nice discussion about, Darien Athletic Foundation, and kind of gave her just an overall view of what happened in 2019. And that Jen showed enthusiasm about wanting to bring this back to her board to, get a temperature from the board if they wanted to move forward with this as a collaborative effort. So when we left that meeting, Jen and I decided that we really should meet with Dan Biggs. We needed to get an updated quote on the project, because that's what the Board of Finance really want, or Board of Selectmen, I never got to finance. Really wanted to have a current quote on the project. So we thought it was best to all sit down, Susan, myself, Jen, and Dan, and kind of go over the entire project again. We made a few changes in terms of changing up the asphalt throughout the property to more of a stable, harder rock stone. Hopefully it will kind of be a porous stone, similar to the parking lot has a porous stone in Highland Farm. No, we obviously didn't pick out that material, but we just talked about those changes. So we want him to go back. He did give us I'll send all of you the color map that he just finished for us. And we thought that was the very first starting point of getting back in discussion with this, letting Dan give us an updated basic costs on the project. Jen will then go back to her board and let her know, hopefully we'll get a quote by then and get the feeling for whether this board is absolutely committed to moving forward with us on this. And if not, if that happens or not, I don't know, then at that point we'll still have a quote, an updated quote to work with the town on. But I think, Susan, you can probably speak to the fact that Jen was very enthusiastic. She can't speak for her board, but very enthusiastic about the Darien Athletic Foundation having their 10-year anniversary of a board, and thinking that this would be a terrific project to honor athletics and health and wellness in the town of Darien.
I agree. And some of the changes we made were, I thought pretty thoughtful about going to stone dust on the backside where we're not expecting a ton of traffic. That the asphalt we kind of wanted to keep towards the front where we thought the highest traffic, there would be more people on it. And also the nature area to the right near the Short Lane property, that's also going to be in stone dust. I think we talked about that, maybe those would be like less trafficked areas. So, it's just nice not to have people whizzing by on bikes or some other thing. So, I think some of the changes will help the budget, but it sounded like the way Dan Biggs wrote it, the prep is going to be there for either, because he's that type of person. He says there's a certain standard that they try to work with, and that if we did decide later on to do the asphalt, we wouldn't be stuck. It's not wasted material either way. Was that the sense you got, Pam?
Yes.
There's a lot of prep that goes in either way. So I was pretty cautiously optimistic too. So I thought we made some good solid changes.
It's good to just start to kind of rehashing it again. It felt good to, kind of leave the meeting thinking that there is a startup again.
Did we get into a little bit chicken and the egg with the foundation though? Because, I'm afraid if we go to, I remember when they were interested before, their stipulation was that they wanted to fund it and then they wanted to pick the contractor, which can only happen if basically they're paying the whole thing, but their contractors kind of by definition tend to be more expensive and they don't go out to bid. So, if we kind of wait for them and they're not interested, are we sort of keeping ourselves from just, proceeding ahead and getting, going out to bid on this to get like a quote, if the town went, to pick the, the lowest bidder and then presenting that to the selectmen?
Well, I think the first step is what we did. We gathered together to discuss this. Dan is moving ahead to give us an updated cost of the project. In the meantime, now Jen's going back to get the true commitment of the Darien Athletic Foundation. Again, as a 10-year anniversary, she thinks this really fits with everything. Yes, that's exactly right. If they commit to the project, what they typically like to do is use their own contractor because they trust their contractor. It's not just getting a lowest bidder. It would mean that the town then couldn't put any financial funds into the project other than in-kind services, which we would work to do. They also still want to discuss whether or not the Darien Foundation will also want to play a part in this as originally discussed. So I think this is a good beginning. And then, like I said, if it comes back and their boards think it's just too big of a project, we'll have the cost estimate and we can go to the town at that point and say, this is a project we're very interested in. As they said, they would most likely look to bond it, and they would most likely, and they would get a building committee that would work out the details.
Okay.
I think it's a good start.
Okay. All right. Did she give you any indication of a timeline? I mean, I just don't want this to sit open-ended for, an indefinite amount of time.
She was looking to get a meeting last week, but that got bumped up. Hopefully it's going to be no later than next week. Yep. She has one key player on the Athletic Foundation that is really hard to nail down, and she really wants him there. So she has been trying to do that. So I suspect I'll put some, I'll keep in touch with her.
Okay.
We're not going to let this go on like it had in the past, because basically she just needs to meet with them and find out whether they have the same excitement and enthusiasm that she does.
Okay. Okay. All right, Susan, any other comments or? No, that's pretty much it.
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, I felt like we made a lot of progress because we did make some changes to the plan that I thought would make the project more, the budget a little lower, to be honest with you. And I thought they were thoughtful changes. So you see right now, with, I guess people are concerned about the cost of materials, and how much something, that this was priced so many years ago. So now we need a current price with these changes. So, I think it's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, that was the key discussion with the selectmen was, given that the quotes were a couple years old and we all know how much the price of construction materials and such have escalated, that whatever quote we had was probably not even close to the current reality. And of course, that was in the context of, this budget having asked for more money for Cherry Lawn because the money they gave us last year turned out not to be enough. So, they're really, wanting to know what the true cost would be. But they seem to have interest in a project, but it wasn't a hard commitment. It was removed from the capital budget for this year, but the comment was, if we're ready to go and it makes sense, we can do it essentially off cycle because they, would possibly bond it. So it didn't shut us down for another year, as I understood it, by having it pull out of this year's capital budget.
That's correct.
Okay, well, please keep us posted because I think we're all feeling it's time to get some of these projects, really up and moving again after close to a 2-year hiatus at this point with all of the different uncertainties, et cetera. I think there's excitement to get some things happening again. Good. Okay, thank you. And then a report from the Pear Tree Working Committee. Cara was not able to attend tonight, but I think Janet and Sarah, do you, one or both of you, we're going to provide an update on the first meeting?
Sure. Cara was great and got us off, on a good note last week with our first meeting that Janet and I went to. The main goal of this working group is to provide a recommendation to the commission regarding the proposed course of action at Pear Tree. And the timeline is that hopefully that we'll have a recommendation to the commission by May. or in May. I thought the meeting went really well. I felt like, you know, everyone obviously comes to the table with, you know, based on their different experiences, you know, with different opinions, but I felt like it was a very open and very productive meeting to start. You know, we talked our short-term goals. Is there some sort of feedback, or is that me? I don't know.
No, there is feedback.
So in the short term, you know, we wanted to define what our action steps were, kind of summarize what the work to date has been on the project, summarize the pros and cons of the various options, you know, whether that's rebuilding, renovating within FEMA, a restart with a different vision based on community input, or the status quo. So we spent a lot of time at the meeting going over pros and cons. Everyone, you know, participated, and it was quite productive. The next step was then we're going to have a meeting next week to work on survey questions, which then we hope to get the survey out in March so that we can really get moving, because the key to all of this, as we know from based on our experience before, is really incorporating what the priorities are for the town and the people of the town. So the survey is the first step in that process. And then after that, you know, we had some discussion as to what other forums that perhaps we could, you know, gain more insight as to what people in the town are thinking, whether, you know, we would have focus groups, you know, that's still to be determined. You know, we also want to have, you know, interviews with, you know, key leaders in town. And then at that point, after we have all that information from the survey and talking with, you know, hopefully lots and lots of people in town, then we'll make a, you know, a recommendation. You know, we really want to make sure that, you know, we have consensus as a group in this process. And so far it seems, you know, everyone seemed to be, you know, accommodating towards that goal. So, so that's where I kind of came out on it. Janet, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Or maybe she's not
No,
there.
I think that was a great summary. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Do you guys have any questions?
Questions from the other members? I do know that Pam's been talking to an outside firm that is able to put surveys together. So
Yes.
that'll be one thing, and Cara's aware of that, the group will need to think about is whether we'd like to request funding to have an independent sort of professional party develop the survey and monitor it, as opposed to having the working group attempt to do it themselves. So I think that's one key point that Cara's aware of, that a decision will need to be made.
Yes.
And Lori, who will the commission make that decision?
I think it would be it would be good to get a recommendation and get commission input on it. I think would be a good idea. But then we also have to determine if we can get funding or not, Pam.
I have the funding in the budget already.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I knew I had up to 10 to work with.
Okay.
So the quotes that came in so far, even from the other company as well, the lowest bid on the Parks Master Plan survey company was $9,500, but the Darien group was $5,000.
Okay.
And then of course had the additional quotes I sent today.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks.
Can I ask a quick question about the bid, the 5,000 bid that you just got? You said, do they develop the questions, or does the committee develop the questions in that situation?
I spoke to him today, and he said it would be helpful to have questions from the commission and from this working group, so that they'll take all these questions and in a non-biased way form the questions. And so he said it would be, they thought it would be very helpful.
How did they think they would go out and get the input, like with the questions? Were they doing like a website or doing a random email? We've talked about why these surveys have to be randomized to get good data.
Right.
They do that type of thing.
Right. So the other quote, the second quote, there was like really 3 parts to the quote. The survey itself, then there was a proposal for an informational website page so that would make it less confusing to the public if they really wanted to revisit what this project was all about, and that they could go to. We could actually clean up some of the misinformation that was floating around for a while in this one page. And then they actually went into another area if they wanted us, if we wanted them to actually provide like drone pictures of like the site so people could see what it looked like. And so again, that's something that we'll really have to discuss. But I mean, the survey is the most important part. And I think that the website page could be too, because the Park and Recreation website, for someone to have to go scroll through our website to try to find all the information, because it's going to be very important when those questions are put together, they have to address, like for instance, FEMA. And someone may not know that if they wanted to rehabilitate, let's go to rehabilitate, if they wanted to rehabilitate the site rather than rebuild, there's only so much money that can be used to put into that to the current building. So people will need to understand that. And I think with every question that's put out there, it's going to have to be very thorough.
That makes a lot of sense, because I feel like it is very confusing, not just for us, but also for the general public, because there was so much information, and the town website is not user friendly as a whole, and the Parks and Rec for this project was just everywhere. I mean, I know people were complaining, where's the plan? I don't understand, where are the pictures? I mean, I'm not blaming you guys, but it got very troublesome to get through. So
Right.
I think any information we should provide should be clear, understandable, because people can't spend hours on our website looking for things and doing research. We need to make it clear, crystal clear.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need to make it simple if we want people to respond. So as someone who deals with surveys all the time, the amount of people who respond is very low compared to how many people you send it to. So I totally agree. The easier we can make it for the respondents, the better responses we'll get. And it's a great idea to go to a third party. I think it's a great way to start it.
Yeah, and the one group that Pam and Carr and I met with, they used a lot of sort of IT data marketing talk, but they seem to have ways that they can hone in and assure that the respondents are coming from like Darien people. They have different ways they can track IP addresses and do different things, which I'm not going to be able to repeat to you.
And just make sure we tell people how we're tracking their data, which I know this town doesn't necessarily always have a privacy policy. But as someone who does this on a daily basis, I'm happy to help put something together. We also should anonymize it so people know that we can't track who's saying what. That would be really critical to get really honest responses.
And I will remind you that our park master plan survey to the entire town had a 29% return, which was great. And this particular company, Noble House, talked about the fact that they can actually do the email and text. So he said that the respondents of getting a text on your phone is like almost immediate response within like 1 minute, that people will click on the link and it would take you to the survey.
Really?
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
God, I have been brainwashed that you never click on a link that comes to you just unrequited, like ever.
You know what? It's going to have a message. It's going to have a message about the community survey for the town of Darien Pear Tree Improvement Project. So whether you decide to do that or you'll get an email, but even if we use the town's email resource and the Park and Rec database, Even if there's duplicates, the system will flush out duplicates. So that's great. I think it's great. And the website, one-page website was $800. So it was reasonable. I think it's worth the investment to make sure that the information is crystal clear.
Okay, well, I think the next meeting is February
It's
22nd?
28th.
Sarah?
28th.
28th, okay, 28th. Okay, great, super. All right, well, it sounds like you guys are off to a great start. Thank you. Okay. I don't know if we have reports from the playground or the invasives. I wanted to start putting this on here to kind of, get in the mode that we need to start, getting working and doing some progress. Mary Louise, I think Amy set up something for us to connect on Friday to start, start the discussions on how we approach that. Yeah, it's a big project. I noticed, I was going to mention this later, but I noticed an article in the Advocate that Stanford, I think part of their budget, and I think it's not approved yet, but there was $150,000 in the Stanford budget proposed just to study the invasives issue in the Stanford parks. So, just to figure out what they're dealing with. So
Yeah.
we got a few ladies. So I was like, oh, there's a little bit of a difference. So anyway, so we'll start putting our heads together. And then the playground folks, I don't know if you've had a chance to connect yet or not. So, okay. Well, hopefully between now and next month, put your heads together and just sort of set out a plan of work and what you're thinking, how you want to tackle it. Awesome. Pam, I just thought we would give everybody an update on the budget process. The status at this point is Kate Bush, Town Administrator, presented her budget. She takes the budgets the Pam and all the other department heads put in. She looks at it. She can make cuts or does make cuts and removes things that she feels aren't a priority. And that gets presented to the selectmen, who then have department by department discussions, which they had, I want to say it was week before last. I did listen in on those. Pam was there and, available to answer questions. Originally, Kate had taken out the $11,000 to install the swing set at Baker, which really made me pout. But the selectmen did put that back for us. So yay for that. Weed Beach, as I mentioned, they want to continue the discussions, but because we don't really have hard numbers now, they didn't feel they could keep that and say, yes, we're approving $1.9 million, because we just didn't have really good, crisp information about what the project is really going to entail. But they did say, when you have better information, come back and we'll talk about it. You don't necessarily have to wait until next year. I've got notes, Pam, but maybe you want to jump in with some key.
Well, Kate also mentioned that she cut back the invasive or the beautification money that we put in for 40 and dropped that to 18.
Yeah.
And she felt that it would be more of a pilot program. So we have $18,000 to work with, and the commission will have to decide whether or not they want to take that $18,000 and spend it on one park or spread it amongst 2 or 3 or 4. So we'll have some, if that money gets approved in the final stages of the budget, the commission will have to make that decision.
Yeah. So, and you'll remember that we had heard money was put in for sort of maintenance and kind of ongoing care of Highland, and we felt that then we should be looking for some ongoing funding to, remove dead bushes or trees or whatever and replace and whatever, and kind of put that number in there. So, this is a good first start, but because it was sort of a last minute, we thought we should ask for it. We haven't really formulated any kind of specific plan that we need, 5,000 at Cherry Lawn because we've identified, 6 bushes that need to be replaced or this or that. We didn't have like a hard plan. So this gives us something to, hopefully it'll make its way through because we all know that, between all of the parks, there's, plenty that needs to be attended to, and will give us some money to start start working with, and then really hone in on our planning and how we want to prioritize. The parking lot at Woodland was deferred for a year. We put in the reno of that parking lot that was deferred for a year. And let me look at my notes. Weed Beach we talked about. And there was some discussion about Pear Tree Point and whether the budget included money for cosmetic repairs there, as we're working through a process, and Pam felt that there was sufficient money in the budget to do some cosmetic work there. And I think that was it. I think everything else made it through as proposed, right, Pam?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So next stop is the Board of Finance, and they could, make changes or, eliminate things as well. So we're not through yet. And then once it goes from the Board of Finance, then it goes to the RTM, the members of the RTM Parks and Rec Committee, many of whom, if not all, are listening in right now, will provide their input and, support to it or whatever. So we have quite a few steps yet that we need to go through before it's all settled in, the late April, early May timeframe. So, but we've made it that far. So, encourage people as discussions are going on, if, either listen in on the meetings, so you can find the recordings, and just, kind of hear the discussions and how people are thinking. It's definitely, definitely helpful to get a sense of, even the mindset of the different boards and what they're coming at. One takeaway right now, of course, that the selectmen are very concerned about just how of escalating prices overall, and the impact on all the various projects in town. And the prices have become very unpredictable is a big concern. So that is it. Pam, I was going to touch on ARPA at some point. We can do that now, I guess.
Sure. I think that's a good
segue. Yeah, originally, although Pam had doggedly over a few months asked whether some of the town's ARPA money could possibly be used for parks project, and had been advised that it didn't meet the criteria. In fact, I think that's even referenced in last month's minutes. Lo and behold, she did get a kind of a last minute request from the town administrator, saying, if we gave you different amounts of money for the parks, what kind of projects might you like to do? So Pam pulled together a list of some of, many of the things that we've already had on our lists, which were presented to this separate committee that's looking into how to use the ARPA money. It sounds like, primary considerations are town infrastructure, flooding, for instance, obviously is coming up. But Pam, they did come back to Pam and ask her to provide a little bit of more detail and color on some of the projects. So she was given a form to fill out, which she's just done, sent me over today. I'm going to take a look, give her any, comments or suggestions to, beef it up or whatever. And then we have to get those in the next couple of days. So, it's possible we might get, some amount of money to, supplement our regular requests, but too soon to tell. But, I'm excited that, well, originally we thought that, the parks projects were not considered suitable, that now they've come back and at least they're considering already, but there are many needs in town.
I think that it's very it's very exciting because they have 6.4 million that they're trying to figure out which direction to put that money in, and that list that they provided really shows using all the funds, and 1.5 is being directed toward parks, which I think is fantastic. I did watch the meeting, and Martha Banks is on it, and she made a good push that she really thought that some of the money should be earmarked toward the parks.
Yeah, and that meeting, like the others, all you can watch them on the the Vimeo site if you want to go back and watch it and again get a sense of the discussions. And certainly you can reach out to committee members and advocate or whatever. They're easy. I just have the Vimeo little app or link on my iPad, and when you have a few minutes, you just pop it on and listen away. So we'll see.
Lori,
So
the name
Yes.
of that group is Arbor.
ARPA, the money is money that's been designated by the federal government. It's the American Recovery and something Act, but
Okay.
it's federal money that's been sprinkled around the country,
Okay.
relation
Okay.
to COVID, to help communities kind of cover either
Recover.
expenses from COVID or recover.
Okay.
So, and a committee was formed to determine townwide to look at all the possible uses of the money and decide how to allocate it. John Zagrotsky, who's a selectman and former chair of the Board of Finance, is the chair. And I know you said Martha's on it, and then some other folks.
And what projects Pam, did you put in? Or do you want to give us the highlights or wait till next time? Either's fine.
I will, what would be better is I'll send you a list of the projects that Lori and I kind of sifted through. Basically, it's still sticking with the 6-year plan, capital plan, but things like the boat ramp were put in. So we put $235,000 towards the boat ramp. But yet we put $11,000 for the swing at Baker. All the playgrounds at Cherry Lawn, McGuan, and Baker were put in there. So I don't know when I know you have to use the money by 2026, but I'm not certain as to when the money would be available, because they were asking me dates of beginning project and ending the project, and that was very difficult. You know, there were about 13 projects put in there for parks, and you know, so I'm still a little confused as to when they expect this money to be available.
And I think the premise in reading articles about different communities who are using the money for the parks, the idea is that, and we've talked about this before, is that, you know, when everybody was locked down, people rediscovered their parks, their community parks, their state parks, and the concept of parks and open spaces are really essential services, but they've never really been thought about that way before, has really come to the forefront. So, you know, that's how it's tying in is, you know, how do you help the communities, you know, maintain, you know, this infrastructure, which now has really been determined and understood how essential it is to community well-being. So we're hoping that that's the connection that can be made.
And it was also important to them to make sure that money was distributed throughout the parks, not necessarily just putting a big chunk of money towards, say, Weed Beach. So yet they did put $60,000 toward the Weed Beach project, which would be the porous asphalt in the back of the woodland part. So they were touching on the project, but they weren't going to pour all the money into one thing.
Yeah, there seemed to be a preference to make sure that maybe not each and every park, but certainly all sort of the, you know, what we call it, like the key parks would, you know, all get some benefit. So that's kind of separate from the budget park, but it just kind of cropped up kind of quickly. You know, really, it was kind of quickly because I said Pam had asked numerous times about, you know, the potential of the money, and was originally told that, you know, it didn't meet the strict, you know, structures of the way the money could be used. So this was a very pleasant surprise. Okay, so we'll work on that and keep everybody posted. But certainly, if you have a few minutes, you know, encourage you to, you know, find the meeting on the Vimeo and just take a listen, because again, it just helps to hear kind of just town officials and how they think about the parks and their priorities and whatever. And I think the more we understand that, the better, really, the better it is. You know, and then also, you know, understanding what's going on in the communities around us and such as well. So, okay, so that was that. Okay. All right. So I think that's it on updating the budget. So Pam, your report. We have a shortish meeting.
Yes, so I touched a lot on my report already, but one highlight I will reiterate is the Cherry Lawn gazebo. I did get in touch with a family that made a presentation to the commission about wanting to donate $40,000 toward upgrading the gazebo. get in touch with them. I am still doing, what I'm doing now is doing some more local research on gazebos. Originally, we had been looking at many of the park magazines that come in our office and have a tremendous amount of choices, but with shipping and assembly and all that jazz, just all the prices really were jacked up. So also with the ARPA money, there's an additional $35,000 put in the ARPA money as well for the gazebo, which will be really helpful if we do get that, so that we would have a larger budget to work on this gazebo. But I am behind the scenes, still keeping in touch with the family, and still doing some research on perhaps some local company that would be able to assemble on site and bring already made to the site. So, and Lori wanted me just to expand on the fact that Park Supervisor Jim Flynn, after 13 years of a very great job, well done in the town, 13 years he's been here, he's retiring at the end of February this month. So we wish him the best of luck in his retirement, and the job opening already has gone out and been posted. We posted it on the town website, and we've also posted on the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association website. I do feel confident that we're going to have ample applications to go through. The job is ending, the posting's ending on March 4th, and we hope that we will have someone in place by the end of March. We are looking for somebody with very extensive supervisory background, good communication, understands athletic fields and parks, and hopefully coming from a park district, but not necessarily has to. So we do know that someone within our park employees will be submitting an application as well. So we're going to go through the process, and hopefully we are going to get somebody very fantastic to fill his shoe.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. Because, I think about, I'm just thinking about, the standards of care document and how that's, somewhat of a roadmap or, guidance, and sort of, the skills that we're looking for is that somebody who would be really, focused on those concepts.
Yes, I agree. And also I really want someone that's really looking at the capital 6-year plan too, in terms of what, looking ahead of each park and saying, this is what we need to do. And I want to make sure that, there's good communication. There's somebody that's doing a great job like Jim has done with his staff and keeping up with really hiring great people. Right now we're killing it with the staff that we have. They're all hardworking guys, and we really want, and that really is due to Jim making good choices, and making sure that, he gets really good, hardworking ethic men. So looking forward to this process of interviewing and selecting somebody great.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Pam, and then the name of the individual who replaced Jeannie?
Oh, Tamara. Tamara she's been working for the town for about just under 5 years. She started in the building department upstairs, and or public works department, and then she moved over to planning and zoning. And it is a very terrible loss for planning and zoning, because she is terrific. And she started on January 1st, given some part-time hours, but she's personable. She absolutely adores her Parks and Recreation Department in Ridgefield, Connecticut, where she lives. Very much understands the benefits of what we do to serve a community. And I think she's going to be a terrific asset for us. I did want to add one more thing that you mentioned briefly about the conversation on the town employees with getting beach stickers. So Jim did run a report, and in 2017, there were 76 town employees, mix of both teachers and town hall. 2018, there were 78. In 2019, there were 69. And then for the last 2 years, we have not sold any. So I just want to make sure I got that out there. And, certainly do look at the report because Jim and Jamie and the department are doing some great things with winter registration. Paddles back up to an all-time high after a little bit of a dip with the Omicron in January, but back up high again. And your brochure is at the printers, and it should be, Jamie did a fantastic job and been working her little butt off. And, it looks great. It's got lots of good programs inside of it, and it should be in your mailbox at the end of February. And that's all for my report, unless anybody has any questions.
I just want to say congrats to Jamie for all the hard work she's done for expanding all of the programs and stuff. I know that's a big benefit to the whole town. I did want to ask about the town employees piece. As we talked about when we were correcting the minutes, can we see what other towns do? Is that hard to find out?
No, it's a phone call away. We can give it to our staff in the office and have them give some phone calls to some surrounding towns.
Yeah, I just think it'd be a nice benefit for our town employees. And if I always can cap everything, Lori. So I can figure out a way to never make anything go out of control. That's what I do all the time. So I think it's a way we can do it, and it would be a nice benefit to give to our employees who come into town.
I'll have that for you in March.
Can we get, I know you talked about the number that actually took advantage of it, but can you get a sense of how many people would be qualified for it, did offer it? Like how many employees are in town? How many are at the schools? Just to get a rough idea.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, that I think is critical information.
Because I know from my own experience a long time ago that some people were like, they didn't realize that was a benefit. So, and some people knew about it. So I think that once it becomes an official policy and people know about it, then we might have a higher rate of usage of that benefit. So just to keep that in mind. I'm not against it. I'm just want to be educated about it.
Yep, I do too. Yeah, as I said, I'm just in the back of my head. I'm just thinking about all these apartments coming online with people who don't have backyards, and I just really trying to project ahead. What kind of demand issues that's going to create for us in terms of the parking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else for Pam? Okay, let me see my notes. A couple things we touched on already. The ARPA funding we already covered. Just I didn't know if there's any follow-up discussion on the joint meeting that we had with the Coastal Commission. I was glad that many people were able, to attend and understand, listen to Dan give the more technical, details. But, he had assembled a meeting with myself and Mike Scrow to go over those findings. And I was listening to him. I said, kind of Parks and Recreation sort of stops at the end of the boat ramp. And then if, the town decides they want to continue on and dredge the channel up and around, it seems to really get into the purview of the advisory commission and other town members. The boat club definitely is a key stakeholder. So we'll really need to think through how that would progress. So I was glad we were able to have a joint discussion on it. There was some comment, made by one of the members. Unfortunately, the attendance of the Coastal Commission, there were some key people missing, unfortunately, that night, but hopefully they'll go back and watch it. But there was some comment about, the boat club understanding that they might have to pony up. And I did get a notice from the Commodore of the boat club clarifying that should no way, be construed as a commitment on the part of the boat club to fund anything. So I just wanted to make sure that was, that was clarified, that would be something that they would be involved in discussions and would have to obviously make board level decisions about what, how that would proceed. So he wanted to make sure there was clarification on that point. So we will, proceed. Dan Biggs, did he get the final report? Pam, I didn't hear anything that he got the final report from the Army Corps. So that.
Not yet.
Yeah. So he's got to get that. Then the harbor commissioner, a new harbor commissioner was appointed a week or so ago. Harbor master, excuse me. And actually, let me correct. The selectmen picked an individual who they will recommend to the state to be appointed as Darien's new harbor master. So it'll have to go through that process. But the harbor master has to sign off on the whole final application for the pear tree project that goes to Connecticut Deep. And then it will have to work its way through Connecticut Deep, which Dan seemed to think would be at least 6 months, if not more, because everything seems to be backed up. So we still do have a ways to go on those pieces. Unfortunately, it's just been painfully slow. But this is a big increased cost, as I think you all heard, depending on how much dredging was done. Dan really gave a range. He didn't go out to bid, so it's absolutely this number or that number, but it was sort of a range of what would be involved in, bringing barges in, taking the sediment out, and then you have a choice of, I guess, putting in a barge and then floating it away, or you'd have to put it in the parking lot and dewater it, which I guess is basically just dry it and then have it scooped up and then trucked away. So, it depends on what method was used to dispose of it, is really why there was that range of costs, which, some people I heard afterwards were wondering about why there was such a big range. You'd have to look at all the, the different alternatives to dispose. So that is that. So we'll keep following up on that. But one thing I just wanted to float out there is whether there would be interest. We know we've done our fall parks tours, which have been great and I think are well received, but whether there would be an interest in also doing a spring tour, either just moving it to a spring event instead of a fall, or doing it twice a year. Because, October seemed to be a good month to get people together. Summers, everybody's away. September seems to be super busy for folks. But October, we're sort of barely met and we're really into the budget. So the timing gets a little funny in terms of us really letting us, kind of have the tour, think about and, percolate what we've seen and heard and really then translate that into budget priorities. So there was a suggestion that maybe we should think about doing a spring tour. So I just wanted to get, I'm certainly open to it. If, just I wanted to get, a sense of whether people could do that. Yep, Pam?
Yeah, Lori, I think that's a great idea, because especially at the time that we may understand more about what we're getting from ARPA, and then we can kind of decide early on what's outside of the ARPA money that needs to be done. For instance, the overflow parking at Cherry Lawn. So that then would be a key item for the 6-year plan, or maybe what's upcoming in the October budget. So I think it'd be a great idea.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Also, if the money, the now 18,000 for landscape maintenance at the parks makes it through, which sort of mid-April, so we would know, we could be thinking about and really looking at, okay, how and where do we want to use those funds? So are people, I know we always have to find a date that works for, all, if not most of us. Does that sort of people amenable to that idea?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, sometime in April, late April, early, and I think Easter's on the late side this year, so we'd have to look at that. And I'm not sure is there a school vacation in April?
Yes.
I think Easter is April 17th.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems right.
Yep, it is April 17th.
Okay.
And the
is that
break is the week before that. The spring recess is the week before that for Darien Public Schools, if you're looking at them.
Week before? Okay.
So the April 11th week.
So probably the weekends of the 11th and the 17th probably wouldn't be good. If people are gone, because people could be gone for the whole week. So, okay. All right. Well, I'll look at the calendar, talk to Pam, maybe float some ideas.
I'd love to know too. I mean, I don't know what everybody does during the week. A lot of people are working from home now. I don't know if there's any flexibility during the week to do an afternoon, like say 3 o'clock in the parks too. So I'm wondering about that, because sometimes people's weekends are so busy.
Yeah.
I can do Fridays if that would be easier for people. because it's quieter on Fridays, believe it or not.
Maybe like a Friday afternoon.
Because you guys you're not in the office on Fridays, so.
Well, the same thing. We'd have to come in on a Saturday too. So
Yeah.
just wanted to float that out there to see if it was a possibility.
Yeah, no, if we can make that work, that might be, because weekends do get, trickier. People are trying to get away and such, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll look at some,
other people, so.
yep, some different dates and see if that's, if that's workable for folks. 'Cause I know we have, some full-time employees, some I think are part-time, and then some, some aren't committed to a work schedule. So we're all over the lot. Okay, and then, just as I'd mentioned, I've been seeing quite a few articles in the Advocate and other things about, other communities and even the state of Connecticut, apparently in this year's budget is looking to put, governor wants to put millions of dollars into refurbishing the state parks. And they basically said they haven't been kept up to snuff over decades, and that they realized, millions of dollars are needed. And they say this is not like anything fancy and new. It's just really, remedying other things that have been let deteriorate for 10 and 20 years. I think one of the guys they quoted said, it's like been death by 1,000 cuts, that we just, just haven't been able to keep up, any of the state facilities. I'm seeing in Stamford, New Canaan. So it seems to be sort of, a hotter topic now that you're seeing in different budget discussions, both at the state and the local levels, people are really focusing on the parks and the need to really, maintain and upgrade them. So I think that's good for us, that it's becoming more in the forefront than I realize, noticing in years gone by. So I think
Lori,
that's good.
can we keep copies for next year budget discussion?
Probably should. I know, snipping them out. Yeah. 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 Waveney's putting a lot of money into the building to make it into a, wedding venue. I mean, they're spending a lot of money up there. So there's a lot of different things going on. So it's good to see. But that is all I had. That is all I had. So that is it for me. Does anybody have a reason to ask for us to go into new business? No? Okay. All right. Then I think that is it. And we'll wrap up fairly quickly for us tonight, which is nice for once in a while. So if I can get a motion to adjourn, we can wrap it up for this month. No? Nobody wants to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Susan. All right. I saw Susan. Okay. Okay. Then Janet, second.
Second.
Okay.
Lori?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Mary Louise?
Yes.
And Kathy.
Yes.
Thank y'all. That's everybody.
Great. I think we're set. All right.
Bye.
Good night, all.
All right. Good night, all.
Bye.